Hello all, I'm Sai and in today's video I'm bringing to you my review and discussion of The Perfect Us by Durjoy Datta, which was my book club pick for the month of February in 2024. In March, we are reading Silka's Journey by Heather Morris. It is not a huge book, so even if you start reading the book by the time this video is published, you can finish reading it by the end of March. In this video, for the first 5 minutes or so, I'll be giving a spoiler-free review for this book, after which I'll be diving into spoilers. The spoiler section for this book is not going to be that huge because I did not end up enjoying the book or liking it as much. I'm going to give you my straightforward opinions about this book, and if you're a fan of this book, I apologize in advance if I end up offending you because I personally did not like this book at all. So without any further ado, let's get into the various sections of the review right away. Starting with the plot of this book. The Perfect Us is basically just an adult contemporary Indian romance book, and in this book we follow our two main characters, Deb and Avantika, both of whom are living in Delhi in their late 20s. They've been married for a few years now and their marriage life has been kind of good. The thing about Deb is that he's been a writer and most of the careers that he has chosen for himself had not worked out properly for him. Despite that, he's married to this very successful and ambitious person, Avantika, who's a huge investment banker, and both of them have been living together in their marriage for a few years now. Deb has this huge inferiority complex and also extremely low self-esteem, which makes him feel bad and not good enough to be married to such an awesome person like Avantika from his point of view. Their life also has not been easy because both of them have had their own shares of trauma from their childhood and also their teen years. They both met each other in their college life and only from that their relationship started blossoming. And finally they ended up marrying each other. And also Avantika's elder brother Tanmay is married to one of Deb's best friends, Venita. So their families and friends are all intertwined together in a way. Above all this, Avantika has also not been the favorite child for their parents, because of which she has suffered a lot in her childhood. And they were also totally opposed to her marrying Deb because of various reasons. We can say that their marriage life is okay, but it also has a ton of stuff going on. They can basically communicate with each other, which they don't do for most part of the book if you ask me. And by saying all these things, I'm not saying that the entirety of the book is not good at all, okay? I thoroughly enjoyed the first third of this book so much because we get to see a lot more and know a lot more about these two characters as individuals and what all they've been through to get married to each other and stay married. And there's this one point during which they decide to have children. And from there, if you ask me, the story just goes off rails and goes down the drain. So basically for me, the first third of the book was super enjoyable and fun to read. And after that, it just became sad, horrible and boring. Now moving on to the characters of the story. We basically follow only 5 characters here, of whom Deb and Avantika are our main leads. So most of the story is focused on them alone. Be even more honest, I can say that Deb was the main character for the story and Avantika was just his wife. It was not like both of them had like a huge equal share in the story as a whole. We saw most of the story just being from Deb's own point of view, even though it's mostly narrated from third person's point of view. Apart from the both of them, we also have a mutual friend for both Deb and Avantika, who's Shrey. And Shrey, Deb as well as Vernita, who's one of Deb's best friends, have all been together and studied together since college. Since Vernita as well as Avantika's elder brother Tanmay got together, both of these people also found each other and started developing a relationship between themselves. In the beginning, Tanmay, who's Avantika's elder brother, was also not that much supportive of her in this relationship, but as days passed on, he just had to bear with it. If you ask me, basically, in my personal opinion, Deb, Avantika as well as Tanmay just felt like very flat, bland, cardboard cutouts of characters who did not feel like people at all. And most of the time, they just felt like super dramatic. But when it comes to Shrey as well as Vernita, I can say that I enjoyed their chunks of the story a lot more compared to the other 3 characters. And I also think that it might hugely be because of the reason that we didn't get to know a lot more about those 2 characters. Now moving on to the writing, which I thought would be the good part about this book before I started reading it, okay? This is not my first book from this author. I know that Durjoy Datta is one of the most best-selling authors of our country and he also has a huge fan base. I have read 2 of his other books before this one, which are also kind of super popular. The first one is The Boy Who Loved and its sequel, The Boy with a Broken Heart. And after that, this is the book that I've picked up by him. And I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to read another Durjoy Datta book in my life, except if he ever publishes the 3rd book in that series. Because the one thing that I've seen very common in all of these 3 books that I've read so far is They are super dramatic unnecessarily, and they are very, very depressing towards the end. Okay, it doesn't matter whether good things happen or not inside the story. Towards the end, everything just feels like a huge tragedy, and the characters whom we've been following for like hundreds of pages just end up being in a not so good place. I don't want to read that kind of reality even in fiction stories, because after a point it just feels very stale, and it also feels like super unnecessarily dramatic. There were very many instances inside this book itself where it felt like he was giving away so much information which did not add on anything to the story at all. Just the sheer amount of information itself made the book a lot more boring to me in the name of character build-up, which did not add anything to the characters. It just showed me how much more insufferable they are. And another thing which I want to say is, it did not feel like a fresh story in any way. Okay, this is only an amalgamation or like a very bad mixture of so many of the love stories that we have seen in movies and TV shows across decades in our Indian media. And the author also did not do a good job of mixing all those things together. It just felt like a hot mess which did not even look good. So yeah, for an author who's so big in the publishing world right now, I expected this book to be much better than it is right now. And it also felt like he was trying way too hard to push us and show us that these characters whom we see here are living the modern Indian life. They kind of are in a way, but the writing just felt like so basic. Finally, in the spoiler free section, talking about the pacing of this book, it is super slow. Okay, it is slow AF. I'm not a person who's bothered with slow pacing generally, but if it is as slow paced to this extent, trust me, I'm sure that anyone who reads the book will get bored very, very, very easily, which I also did. As I've said before, the first third of the book was very much fun and enjoyable. I'm not saying that it was fun and enjoyable because it was fast paced. Okay, it was slow even in the beginning also, but despite that slowness, I was able to have a lot of fun with the characters because I got to know a lot more about them without getting depressed. It had both good happy things as well as sad things from their past, which was brought up and shown to us in order to make us understand them better. But after that, it just felt like it was just a huge pile of trauma piled one on top of the other in a very, very dramatic way. That unnecessary element of drama just stretched out a lot of the chapters to me, and I was just feeling like, when the F will this book end? Because if I had not picked it as a book club pick, trust me, I would have DNF'd this book and just tossed it out. Because basically it made me feel uncomfortable. It just irritated the hell out of me. And the pacing of the book has a huge part in doing that. So I ended up rating this book around 2.5 to 3 stars. That too only because of the epilogue kind of was an ointment on a huge wound. So yeah, if you ask me, I'd not suggest you to go forward and read this book. But if you're a fan of the author and if you like her stories, I can understand why. It is totally okay to love any kind of story that you want. It's just that this book is not one for me, and I'd probably not read any of the other books by this author in the future too. So now I'm going to dive into spoilers, and that's not much I want to discuss about this book because it will just annoy me even more. So if you have read the book, please do stay on, and if you're interested, you can listen to my opinions even more. Now talking in the spoilers section, I'm just going to discuss a little bit of stuff about the characters because they just made the book so much more horrible to me. Okay, first let's talk about Deb, who's practically the main character of the story. Okay, he just felt like this very insufferable, miserable, self-loathing person with like huge low self-esteem, at the same time quite a number of privileges. I can understand that some of the traits that Deb has can be relatable to a lot of us. Okay, I felt related to Deb at instances here and there across the book, but after he just went off and just kept on saying negative things about him and thinking negative things about him, trust me, I just got super effing bored of him, and I also got like thoroughly annoyed with him. Okay, I was just not able to believe that I had to push through this book with this kind of main character, and it was driving me crazy. Okay, it was driving me and grinding my gears to such a hard extent. He totally felt like a not main character kind of person to me. And another thing which I totally hated about him was the fact that he went on and married Avantika despite knowing that she's super successful, she's very ambitious, and she does not think that low about herself or him. He's the one who has all this mental image of him being so bad and so low in life compared to such an amazing person like Avantika. It's not like she's great either. Okay, she's just normal, and the extent to which he thinks bad about himself just shows her and puts up her on a pedestal for him. I personally think that if anyone feels like that in a relatable way to Deb in this book, I think they need to work on their self-esteem. Okay, because it's not fair to yourself or the other person whom you're going to marry, because that huge lack of self-esteem is just going to destroy you from within and also going to be very unhealthy for the marriage, because someone is always going to have an inferiority complex or a superiority complex just because of the lack of self-esteem in one person. It's not like he's a person who does not have the resources or facilities or the education to think about this and make it better for himself too. He is a person who knows technology. He has worked with a lot of people people. He has worked and lived in different cities. He's a writer, so he must obviously read at least a little bit. While doing all this stuff, I can't believe that someone could not have that amount of self-awareness to go forward and better themselves. It just felt like not a main character to me. Next, we'll move on to Avantika, okay? While I talked all those things about Deb, it is not like Avantika is a saint either. I can understand both of these characters are flawed, but the amount of extent to which you can write a flawed character and make it be acceptable to people is also very, very limited, okay? You cannot go forward and tell that a person who has killed 100 people is still a good person. It's the same here too, okay? If they keep on doing something bad to themselves or the other person, that eventually ends up making the marriage for them itself very, very horrible. I don't think both of those characters are just flawed. There is something very much wrong with them which they need to understand, accept and try to work on. Okay, all these things can be relatable to people. It should also be shown in a way and represented in a way that these characters are trying to make themselves better. Okay, they might not end up doing it eventually by the end of the book, but it should at least be shown to us in such a way that they are trying what they can in order to make themselves better. At no instant did I feel like either of them was doing that for themselves or for the other person. They were there to support the other person the whole time, but they didn't do anything to make their marriage better, if you ask me. There's also this huge thing, okay? There's this huge thing which I saw Avantika did, which just glazed off, okay? And I was not able to accept it at all. There's this stupid fight that they have after the first time they try to get pregnant and not end up getting pregnant, where Avantika picks up a silly fight with Deb saying that she wants the kid to have her surname, and it is totally a problem that is out of the topic and out of the things that they are worrying about in that instant, and she just blows it up out of proportion. And at the end of the fight, she just ends up saying to Deb that she was actually testing him. Okay, if someone said that to me after a huge fight that they were testing me, trust me, I will burst out like a cracker. No matter whom it is, being that manipulative to a person and hurting them mentally to such a deep extent, even if for a very short amount of time, is such an immature thing to do. Okay, both of these people are nearly shown to be in their late 20s here. They are going to be almost 30 in just a few more years, and that is not the kind of behavior an adult who's like 25 and above can exhibit and just get away with. They can love each other to any far extent they want to, but when one person is gaslighting the other person or trying to manipulate them like this, it is completely unhealthy. It is not at all okay in any way. And again, Dev's lack of self-esteem, thinking that he is less than Avantika, just fuels this for him and makes him see that he is kind of in the fault there, and he's kind of passing the test that was given by her. That was just pure garbage. Okay, if you are someone who likes this kind of stuff, please, I want to tell you, it's not healthy. Okay, it's not healthy. It's not okay to be so. There are people who are like that. It is fine, but it is also necessary to work on it and make it better. So yeah, that's completely a no-no for me. Next, talking about Vernita as well as Shrey. Okay, if you ask me, of all the 5 characters who are predominantly shown here, Shrey and Vernita are the only 2 people whom I liked. Okay, it's not like I loved them either. I liked them. They were okay compared to the other main characters whom we were focusing here. We also get a little bit of the backstory of both Vernita as well as that of Shrey. Okay, if you ask me, a bit more of Shrey compared to that of Vernita, because Vernita just felt like a connection between Deb, Avantika as well as Tanmay, but Shrey was this whole huge separate entity, and he had his own problems going on, and Vernita also had her own problems going on, but it felt like they were a bit more realistic characters. Okay, all the others just felt like blown up dramatic versions of whom they are compared to whom genuine people look like in the world. Now, it's not like the problems that these people are facing in their lives is very unique. Okay, it's very common in the Indian household, and I'm sure that anyone who's Indian has seen someone who's facing this kind of problem in their life, that each and every one of the characters faces at different parts of their lives. But it felt even more realistic in terms of Shrey and Vernita because we did not get to know a lot more about them. At the same time, we did not end up spending that much time as we spent with Deb and Avantika, who made us, or specifically me, infuriated and irritated. I think if I had gotten to know a lot more about Shrey and Vernita also, they also might have ended up grinding my gears. It could have happened because Shrey is like total like top-notch dramatic most of the time. But at the end of the day, both of these characters just felt like very understanding, good friends, and more than that, they felt like mature adults to me. Talking about Tanmay, I should say that he was kind of an ass of a character. Okay, ever since the page he was introduced, it was very clear that the author's intention was to make the reader not like Tanmay. Okay, and it was not like we were given reasons in the beginning of the book. Later on, we got to know his backstory and Avantika's backstory with their parents, and how he was always overshadowing Avantika the whole time. But that too, we get to know only from the point of view of Avantika, not from that of Tanmay. Okay, there are always 2 sides of the same story. We saw the side of the story story from Avantika's, but we did not get to see Tanmay's side of the story. I'm not saying or justifying the fact that everything that he did was okay? But we also need to try and see his side of the story, because I don't think a person would do that to their sibling if not for something else which is hugely weighing on them. I've seen so many other such stories before in so many other books, and they all tend to show at least a sliver of the other person's point of view of the same story, which is not shown here. So in that way, I can say that he's kind of neutral in my head, because I did not end up hating him as I did Deb and Avantika. At the same time, I was not able to put up with him as I did with Vernita and Shrey also. So he's kind of a character whom we don't have enough information on. So I'm not sure whether I liked him or not, but I think he was okay. Now I'll just talk about a little bit about why I liked some instances of the book and why I did not like at all the rest of the book as a whole. Okay, I've said in my spoiler review part itself that the first 1/3 of the story or the book was enjoyable for me, because it was just plain outright fun. Okay, I went to this book from the synopsis that it had with the mindset that it will be like the first third of the book throughout, but it ended up being something completely different after that first third. I was just having so much fun with the book and these characters as friends while reading that chunk of the story. But after they decided to have a child and when they started IVF processes, it just felt like very depressing, and it just went downhill way too quickly for me. And the fact behind that is that after a point, they as well as Avantika, they are completely obsessed with the idea of having a child. Okay, it's not like that's the only reason why you need to get married. Okay, there's a lot more to do in life than just have kids. You can have kids, you can adopt kids if you cannot biologically have them. There are so many other options available if someone wants to bring up another person inside the world. It need not always be biological and genetic. You know, the species urge to just procreate and give birth to a child is very, very understandable. But after a point, it just felt like pure obsession from both of these characters to me, because it felt like they had nothing else going on huge in their lives, so they had to like bring this baby into the world and kind of surround their world around it. I don't know if I'm making sense or not here, but it felt like that to me. And the author also did not end up showing it in a healthy or proper way here to us. I'm sure that everyone who wants to have a baby will get obsessed with that thought at some point, but the extent to which it was driven here in terms of depression, sadness and obsession was just like off the charts and way too dramatic. So that kind of took me off the rail and made me not enjoy the book at all. The only reason why I ended up rating this book 2.5 or 3 stars out of 5 is only because of the last chunk of the book where the baby does not end up dying. Okay, trust me, after all that they've been through and after losing a child, if they had ended up losing that other child too towards the end of the book, this book could have just been a huge mind F for me, and I was not ready for it. Okay, trust me, I was about to just go forward and rate it 1 star on Goodreads before even finishing the book. Okay, because I had not finished the last page of the book yet, and it just drove me crazy to the extent which he had taken this torturous event to just last long for us. And when I got to see that the child survived at the end, it was kind of relieving for me. That's why I said in the spoiler free review section also that it was kind of an ointment on top of the wound for me. It is not that effective. Okay, it's just going to be there, but it at least does not leave the wound naked so that it can be infested by anything. It felt like that kind of an ending to me. So I can say that this was not the best book for me, and I probably will not read any of the other books by this author ever again, except for the third book in that series, as I said in the beginning. And it also makes me understand that I must be a bit more mindful and do deeper research into the books that I'm picking for my book club. So yes guys, that's it for my spoiler free review and spoiler filled discussion of The Perfect Us by Durjoy Datta, which was my book club pick for February. If you read the book along with me in February, please do let me know down in the comments whether you liked this book or did not like it at all like me. If you liked the book, please do let me know why in the comments below, because I'd like to know that. And if you did not like the book just like I did, tell me if there is any reason that we have in common in the comments, because I'd like to dig in a bit deeper into that. And if you did enjoy watching today's video and found it helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. If you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.